It's the Cybersecurity Whisperer for the week of July 28th. This week we celebrated National Intern Day. And certainly, I think it's something to be celebrated. A lot of college students, rising seniors, working college internships during the summer. And internships can be a gold mine for cybersecurity hiring. They might generally be considered the lowest form of drudgery in any industry. Stereotypically, you've got these young rookies eager to get experience to see what's usually poorly compensated or someone that just runs errands for you. But we there's this example that we linked to that was an intern that was somebody that early on had a magical internship that really transformed his life and career. During his security internship many years ago, he detected a critical vulnerability in solar panel technology that threatened to put the entire power grid of the Netherlands at risk. And his last name's Westhoff. He made global headlines, spoke at several conferences, and appeared in 2 documentary films, and then landed, of course, a full-time job in InfoSec, and the same place where he had interned. And according to ISC Squared is who gives is who manages the CISSP and certification, along with many others. They did a 2023 workforce report, and 24% of new cyber workers, those that are in the industry for 1 year or less, completed a cyber internship before getting the first job in the sector. By contrast, just 9% of more seasoned workers, those with 10 or more years in the industry, had done an internship. So again, internships, they not only help the employers complete projects and work that they need to get done, but it really expands the pool of eligible people to draw as we need more and more cyber. And so certainly something that hopefully your organization is able to embrace in the coming years if you don't already. Huge win this week, or I guess you could say blow, in the SolarWinds case. It blows down the SEC Cyber Enforcement Authority. And this is probably a good thing. The U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York on July 18th dismissed most of the SEC's landmark case against SolarWinds Corp. and the CISO there, Tim Brown. They wrote a 107-page opinion in the SEC versus SolarWinds Corp. And Timothy Brown. And the judge there, Paul Engelmeyer, rejected the SEC's efforts to expand the SEC's internal accounting controls provision to encompass an issuer's cybersecurity controls. The court restrained the SEC's use of the Exchanges Act, disclosure controls and procedure. This is a provision where disclosure controls existed and systemic or systematic failures were not aligned. So rather, the court found that innocent errors are an inadequate basis on which to plead deficient disclosure controls. The court also dismissed the SEC's material representation claims because they relied on hindsight and speculation. In the end, only a subset of the SEC's material misrepresentation claims, which were associated with the security statement they had published on their website, that's all that really survived as the case proceeds towards discovery. So, again, this judge's ruling is largely a victory for industry officials who have said the charges would create a chilling effect in the field that would make individuals less likely to probe for vulnerabilities. These vulnerability researchers, if they know they could later face legal ramifications. Here's something that we've been talking about for a while that came up again this week. Attackers are abusing URL protection services that hide phishing links and emails. So I think we're all familiar with these. These recent phishing campaigns we're seeing abusing email security services that rewrite URLs to hide their own malicious links. The irony is that the URL rewriting feature, it's common in a lot of secure email gateway softwares and even some cloud-based email security services. It's intended as a reputation filter to prevent users from accessing known phishing sites. But from mid-May 2024 onwards, researchers at Barracuda observed phishing attacks taking advantage of 3 different URL protection services to mask their phishing URLs. And again, if you think about this is when you get when most corporations have link rewriters, so that when you hover over a link, you can't really see where it's going to take you because it's taking you to the security company to rewrite it, and the bad guys can then hide in there, and it won't be detected by the URL protection service, most likely because it's not a bad link at the time. and then and so then you're phished. And so I would highly recommend you to turn off the URL rewriting and set up other layers that test those links, but allow your team members to see where they're going. Although, side note on that, if you're using the new version of Outlook for Office 365, the brilliant folks at Microsoft have decided to take that away as a feature. So even if you hover over a link, it won't show you in the taskbar or anywhere where that link's going. You actually have to right-click, copy it, and paste it into something like Notepad, which most users are not going to do. So hopefully Microsoft will be bringing that feature back very soon. Let's see. Reading from a very interesting case in KnowBe4. KnowBe4 is probably the world's best-known security awareness training company that also does phishing testing. They were very transparent this week in letting everyone know that they hired an apparent nation-state hacker from North Korea. It's a very interesting story. I'm sure that any of us could have fallen for this, and probably some have and don't know it. But again, KnowBe4 revealed this week that it had unwittingly hired a North Korean hacker who attempted to load malware into the company's network. Kudos, because their security operations center detected it very quickly and stopped it. Their CEO and founder described the incident. He called it a cautionary tale that was fortunately detected before causing any major issues. No illegal access was gained, no data was lost, compromised, or even exfiltrated on any of their KnowBe4 systems, not a data breach. It was just an organizational learning moment that they shared with us, and it can certainly happen to any of us. They said it was looking for a software engineer for its internal IT AI team. So again, wanting to hire AI folks, it's a hot commodity. The firm hired a person who it turns out was from North Korea. They were using a valid but stolen US ID. You talk about this ID theft, a photo that was enhanced, of course, by AI. And so they've handed this over to the FBI, and they're working on it. But they hired, again, they posted a job, they received resumes, they conducted interviews, they performed background checks, verified references, and hired the person. I mean, what else can you do? And then they sent them their Mac workstation, and the moment it was received, it immediately started to load malware. And even though the photo that was provided was fake, it really looked enough. When they did the video interviews, it really looked like the person that they were talking to. They conducted 4 conference-based video interviews on separate occasions, confirming the individual matched the photo. They did a background check again. All other standard pre-hiring checks were performed and came back clear because the identity again was stolen. And so their SOC team, again, July 15th, a series of suspicious activities were detected, and the user, beginning at about 9:55 p.m. Eastern time, they came into the KnowBe4 SOC. They reached out to the user to inquire about the activity, and then they immediately responded. And the bad guy actually said he was following steps on his router to troubleshoot a speed issue, and that may have caused a compromise. So he had a story ready to go. He performed various actions to manipulate session history files, transfer harmful files, and execute unauthorized software. He used a Raspberry Pi to download the malware, and their security operations center then tried to get more details from him. They tried to get him on a phone call, but he was unavailable, and he became unresponsive. So at about 10:20, they just quarantined his device and turned off his account. So kudos to them, and be on the guard for this in terms of ways that the bad guys might try to get into your company. Because they know that KnowBe4 has access to tons of companies. And think about what they would have if they got in. They would have access to your email from those companies, as any email security company would. Here's an interesting one talking about the SEC. They, talking about the SolarWinds case. Now they have fined another publicly traded company, R.R. Donnelley & Sons, a little over $2 million for negligence before, during, and after a ransomware attack. And so they said that they failed to devise controls to adequately detect, respond to, and disclose an attack that included data exfiltration and service disruption. If you're not familiar, R.R. Donnelley & Sons is a publicly traded global provider of marketing and business communication services, and they had a ransomware attack back in 2021 that resulted in the successful encryption of their computers, exfiltration of over 70 gigs of data, which, isn't a lot, but I guess it depends on what type of data. And it had the personal financial information for 29 clients. And they had a recent filing late last month, and the SEC said that they failed to execute a timely response to the ransomware intrusion that occurred between November 29th of 21 and December 23 of 21, so almost a month. Over 20 alerts were generated. Does this sound familiar to the Target incident many years ago? Over 20 alerts were generated by their managed service provider, but they only escalated 3 to the internal security team. And so they said, look, the indications that similar activity was taking place on multiple computers, connections to a broader phishing campaign, and open source intelligence that the malware was capable of facilitating this remote execution of arbitrary code. So, even though they got these, the company did nothing about the alerts until a month later when it was too late. And so again, the takeaways on this are make sure that you've got proper controls and processes. You've got audit and oversight over your MSSP, you've got review and escalation of security alerts, and you've designed and implemented effective disclosure controls. So very interesting there for you. Again, that's a wrap this week. We hope you like and share and that you reach out with any questions. Have a great week.